I spoke with Mike Mearls about the evolution of D&D, from the rules to the campaign settings, and about that what-if factor that makes D&D so fun to play.
My job of building games and building worlds, like we just now have years, decades of doing it. We know more. First edition, you go back to that time period, they were making it up as they went. They were literally building the road as they were driving down it. They were war gamers, right? Miniatures or hex and counters, and suddenly they're playing role-playing games, right? It's a huge transition. And then in second edition, you see, okay, now it's about world building. Let's start doing that. And it was like, it's very much a product of its time. Like at that time, no one had really done world building before. So what's a sensible thing to do? Well, let's just start describing these worlds in detail. Like we need to know, answer all these questions. They didn't yet know what questions they needed to ask. So they just had to start asking all the questions. You know, everything we do is built on the foundations that have come before. You know, like we now can address world building, I think, in a way that it works better for our audience because people, you know, the folks like Dave Cook and stuff, back, you know, Zeb Cook back in the day, tackled those questions, right? They built Planescape, they built Dark Sun, you know, Troy Denning and that team, Gary Gygax creating Greyhawk, Ed Greenwood, you know, building the Forgotten Realms with Jeff Grubb helping bring it to life, Dragonlance, you know, with Weiss and Hickman building it. They were, you know, like Gary and Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax, they were doing that. They were building the road as they drove down it for game design. And then the next wave of TSR giants came along and did that for world building, right? And so we're just kind of driving down the roads they built and then noticing, oh, hey, we can now make the more fine-tuned adjustment, you know? And then it's also looking at a more contemporary audience of, you know, what connects with the audience today, especially in delivery, right? Like we're recording a video right here, right? This would have been 30 years ago a massive undertaking. Like not only would it have been much more technically complicated, how would then you get people to watch it, right? Well, buy time on a network. Well, good luck with that, right? Or just show it in, you know, we'll buy airtime on a local station in, you know, in Iowa and hope, you know, whatever. Right now it's we'll put it online and anyone all over the world can watch it. What we do so often, especially for me, because Perkins is the storyteller, he knows all that stuff. I'm the engineer. You know, like I like figuring out how things work together and how things can be made useful. That's what I love. And so many times for me, it's just like, this is all great, but how do I use it in my campaign? You know, and if I mean, it's not where it ends, right? I can't just say this is good enough for me, so now we're done. But I always feel like the stuff we've done that's resonated the most has been like, oh, now I want to use this in my campaign. Now I understand how to use the Feywild. I understand how to portray it. I can get my hands into it as a storyteller and start building things with it, rather than just like, you know, it's just, oh, it can be kind of anything you want. Like, well, if I wanted to be anything I want, I don't need you to give me permission to do that. I can just go do anything, right? I can just start with a blank page. But if I'm starting with D&D, I kind of want to have a foundation built that I can start from. That element is classic Dungeons & Dragons. Here is a thing, and then here is some kind of weird twist on it that now I have to try to make sense of. And so much of D&D is like, why do wizards have spellbooks? Why you have clerics and they pray to gods? Why don't the gods just come and solve all your problems? And that's what's fun is, well, now I think, well, why, right? And then you can end up with just a very simple, like, you know, well, you know, the gods are just forbidden from directly interfering in mortal affairs. Or you can have like Dragonlance, which answers it by like saying, oh no, the gods, the last cataclysm. Well, Paladine, the lawful good god, he was the one who actually caused this massive cataclysm that killed untold numbers of people. So that's why the gods aren't around. That's why they don't interfere. Because last time they interfered, they actually kind of made a mess of everything. That's D&D, right? Like, oh, there's like, you could have explained that in a lot of ways. You know, Dragonlance at the start of the story gives you this really interesting, really juicy explanation for it. And like, oh, that's why. And then you have, in Dragonlance, you have the theocrats who kind of start their own religion and the entire tension there and all that. And it's just, you know, that's storytelling, right? Is like you take your third answer, not just the obvious one. Well, what's a more interesting, nuanced answer? That's what a good RPG campaign or game does, right? It's the what if. Like, what if you were Vikings and you sailed south to raid England and everyone in England was dead? What's happening? Right now there's your campaign. Like, we have to answer what's happening. Is this a threat to us? Is there some malevolent force behind this? Like, you know, you kick in the door to the monastery to steal all the objects and everyone, they're all undead now. They're all charging, you know, they're zombies shambling around. Like, okay, now we have an adventure, right? Like, you just change one thing and then let your players chase after it.